Let's first look at how one is born into the world, or whirled into the world. Why are we whirled? First off, from a pedantic perspective, this should be obvious since the world is whirled on its axis. The writers of the Matrix movies also knew why, because the main character Neo is actually derived from the Latin word neo, that means spin, weave, or produce by spinning. How this process works in our reality is similar to the way the colors on a DVD movie are read by the DVD player. Each color is separated and read at different intervals of time. This is an exact correlation to the different distances of each planet from the Sun, and the different lengths of time each planet takes to whirl around its own axis while also being spun around the Sun. This separation works in a 7-step process, which is why there are 7 major planets that give us the 7 days of the week. There are 7 notes in a mode of music, and we also see 7 colors in a rainbow. The symbolism of the rainbow alone is extensive and should be researched more deeply. The colors, sounds, and worlds that are whirled are all separated because the prefix sep comes from the Latin septumma, meaning 7, which gave the word September, which was originally the 7th month of the Roman calendar. There are 7 chakras within the human body that the ancients called the spinning wheels of light. This is appropriate because these colored wheels are whirled, and we live in a world of colors because we are humans. Hue is simply a word for color, and the quality of the colors determined by the dominant wavelength of each color. The Latin word ue literally means hither, and to this point place degree, indicating that it is the colors that resonate to a certain wavelength frequency and formulate the reality that we currently find ourselves in. There is an astounding amount of indication and evidence to show that we are multidimensional beings that are caught in a cycle of separation with a certain mathematical ratio of vibration waves holding us prisoner in a DVD movie-like loop. The ratio is the ration of the god Ra, Ra-Tio ratio, within this base 10 reality. 10 fingers and 10 toes, as the Swedish Tio states with the meaning of 10. The fake gods that hold us all prisoner also need to ration us because we are their food, and a ration is the food allowance given for one day. The separation that is given to the gods while we exist inside of this DVD matrix reality. Matrix is furthermore the Latin word for womb, which is where our body ship is birthed or birthed. All ships find their birth when they reach the port or dock. When Neo woke up in the Matrix, he was inside a battery womb or iPod, which is why Apple Computers sells everyone iPods and iPads to reflect this. One definition of pad that concurs with this is that of a temporary living quarters. We are all living in our iPads or iPods because we bit the apple of sin. The word apple is also phonetically spoken as apple because our body ships are receiving a toe on the conscious dream line of a reality, which is why we have a skull. A skull? Yes, because a scull is an oar that is used for sculling, and sculling is the propelling of a boat by an oar over the stern. When someone is commanded to do something and prodded in a certain direction, their instructor is said to be stern with them to get the point of the command across. And this point is usually finalized with a stated warning vocalized as, or else. The or else has a dual meaning. The first is obviously the metaphor of being towed in the body ship by time, which tows us in the skull. And the second is that we are commanded to follow the orders of the DVD storyline that has been handed to us, since we have become the property of the god known as El. Hence, do what I say, or else, indicating that if we do not follow the storyline, we will be punished by El. It is also no coincidence that the term sculling also has culling after the letter S. To cull something is to collectivize it, select the best or worst parts from it, and then pluck those parts. This is what is happening to every individual consciousness, and essentially no one is even aware that it's happening. Even as these things are told, they sound so fantastic that most likely they are either shirked off, ignored, or simply laughed at. Those are the typical responses of fear, especially in regard to substantial truths being told that are contained within the psyche of the collective subconscious mind of humanity. This psyche has been taken over by the ones who now tow us in the skull. We are towed in the skull because there is a toad in our mind that is towed around, thus pointing out the facet of our reptilian takeover, which is known as the R complex of the brain. This is also a whole study unto itself. Every ship, including the human body, is eventually brought into port and is then docked. This is why there is a doctor that delivers the body ship, because it is a new liver being produced, another living being that is being delivered by the doctor as doctor. Hence, doctor is phonetically docked or. And you as the living human being are the or that is going to be mined for gold in your mind, because mind is mind, giving us the actual basis for the Sumerian depiction of the Anunnaki coming here to mine for gold, because we are the human resources that mined for gold. This also displays the fact that humans are seen as the chattel property of these false gods, since we are the ones they mine, and when someone states that something is theirs, they say that it's mine. We are the endless resource being mined, and companies do not have human resource departments because the title sounds fancy. You are also the oar, which has an oar, because you are the body ship that needs to paddle through this existence, which is a sea of electricity. Doctors use paddles to resuscitate someone who is in cardiac arrest for this reason. What do they use to resuscitate the patient? Electric currents. Just like the sea that has currents. What else do doctors do? They perform surgery, because it is an electrical surge to the body of the patient, thus surgery. The doctor is also the connection to the body, ship, and sea terminology, since the doctor has delivered the doctor, an oar that is sitting in its berth and no longer rowing. The one that is going to be sold as capital currency, which is electric and sea-like currency. You see? Take a look at this Hebrew word. Does it look familiar? Perhaps like Neo again? Well, in Hebrew this translates into English as pin, and the Vietnamese word pin means battery. Taking this further, the Vietnamese language also has the word nhau, but it translates as anchor, because once a ship is docked, the anchor needs to be set down, therefore giving us the connections of Neo the battery, who was anchored in his matrix womb, being used as docked ore, the energy of electric gold making. This Hebrew word can also be spelled out as such, which can be written out as sukkah, and is phonetically pronounced as sukkah. This Hebrew term translates into English as thicket and booth or rude temporary shelter. The booth, of Neo's iPod. Did you really think that it was just a movie? Again, the languages have been around for far longer than that Hollywood production came out, and I encourage everyone watching this to check out every single translation and word that is being presented. Like I said, this goes deep, and these examples are just the beginning. It would actually take many lifetimes to go through all of these connections in every single word in every language, not to mention the languages that are extinct and unknown. Once the human is birthed, they are also docked in by the docked hence docked What is It was an ancient Sumerian city that housed what was known as the Ziggurat of also called Temen-Nigiru. This word meant house whose foundation creates terror. Everything in this reality is designed to make us fearful, and this starts right at birth. Interestingly enough, the patron deity of this city was the Akkadian moon god known as Sin, and it has been said over and over again to humanity that man is born in sin. Man bit the apple to then be continuously reborn in his and her Apple iPods, which becomes an unrepayable debt. What is the Merriam-Webster's #1 dictionary definition of the English word debt? Sin. To pay the debt of sin, which is the price of our birth and birth in the moon. Remember that the 7 days of the week do not include an Earth Day, since man is truly born in sin, the moon. The ancient accounts and stories of the man on the moon is literally about mankind in the moon. We are all the children in the attic, so to speak, and this will become clearer as we go along. First we are born, and begin to be used as battery energy, as the French language agrees, since the French word borne means pin, terminal boundary, stone, as associated with the Vietnamese word pen, meaning battery, and the Hebrew word is shown for pin. The stone that is the terminal boundary is the moon. This use of the word pin is the reason that banks get you to use a PIN number when using a bank card. Don't quite agree yet? Well, the Spanish word borne translates as terminal and point of a connection to a current of electricity. When people travel to and from airports or bus stations, where do they arrive and depart? At the terminal. When people vote, where do they do so? In a voting terminal or a polling station. In actuality, people are voting, not voting, because they are going to the polls, which are the electric battery poles of positive and negative, to place their votes on the candidate that they want to see put in charge. The politician that receives the most votes is the one that is going to be put into the position of power. It's not called power politics for nothing. So far, the listener might be saying to themselves, "What?" Precisely, what? A watt is a unit of power that is equal to 1 joule per second, and this correlates with the situations when people say that someone isn't very bright because they need to ask the same question over and over again. What? That person is said to be dim because they are not enlightened. You could, of course, refuse everything that is being shown, but that just creates a negative ionic polarity charge within your own biology, hence to refuse, because a fuse is an electrical device that can interrupt the flow of current if it becomes overloaded. I trust that this will not confuse the listener. Let's continue on. What is the definition of born? It is the past participle of the word bear, which is the reason that mothers are said to bear children. Children that arrive bare naked into this reality. By definition, to bear something is to also take on the debts of another person. What debts? The price of sin, of course. The price that one pays to be born in sin, the moon. The same moon that also came to rescue you from sin. This is why the Sumerian Anunnaki lord known as Enki said that the first things are the last things. We are born in sin, the moon, and we all die in sin, again the moon. This is the basis for the white light program that people see at their death when they are welcomed by the false representation of their loved ones. The terminal that everyone goes to during their departure from this reality. This is nothing more than an afterlife program written by the false alien gods who control every one of us who lives on this planet. Wait, that's not correct. It's every one of us who lives on this plan ET. There we are.